So our final speaker tonight is Father Wilbert Chinjon, the pastor at St. Bonaventure Parish. I don't know if Father Wilbert used his iPhone to give us, or Google, to give us his response to the question. But he is our techie guy, so here's his response. There will be no pearly gates. There will be a soundtrack that is truly heavenly, and the lighting would be perfect. Like how, right? Spoken like a techie. But I did press him for a little bit more, and he said, the soundtrack will be perfect, as will the lighting. Heaven, existing in the joy of God, where there is no shadow of sadness and loneliness, but only perfection. And then I got a better, eh? So I guess it is. So, Father Wilbert's topic this evening is interment. So if you could please welcome Father Wilbert.
If Father Nathan wants to improve his experience of funerals, he just needs to be the associate of Father Kevin in All Saints. They have like 130 funerals in a year, I think. Yeah. So please pray for Father Kevin and Father Rock and the deacons. To bury or to cremate? That is the question. Or is it? Often this is where families make the mistake, thinking that this is the only question that needed to be answered. Many fail to realize that there are other considerations that need much attention and detail. And that's one of the topics that would be difficult for the family to handle when the person who died did not share that information as to how to get there. Sometimes they just say, I want to be cremated. But when do you really want to be cremated? That's what we're going to talk tonight. We can't emphasize enough the point that families should really talk about this. You don't have to necessarily pre-plan with your with a funeral home, but the most important thing is talking with the family to discuss these plans and to write them down. Talk to your priest too, so that you don't end up reinventing the wheel. Talking with the family is very important because it not only makes their lives easier when you go, it also takes away the surprise in planning your funeral. And they won't be second guessing themselves. They also can tell you now how they feel about your plans and be involved in a dialogue and have the opportunity to explain why the church would recommend these things. Now back to the question, to bury or to cremate? Yes, we do have to answer that question. Then after having answered it, you must know the options. Let's say you wanted to be buried. If you're planning to have a mass, and you have the option of having the funeral vigil the night before, so that is an option that you have. If you want this, then you then have to decide with the family about the viewing. Is it for anyone to view, or is it only for the immediate family and close friends? You have to involve your family in this decision. Your funeral home can provide you with a room for viewing and with a closed casket in the chapel of the funeral home for the vigil service. In cases where you want the vigil to be done in the parish church, you have to discuss this with the funeral director and the pastor as to how you may arrange this accordingly. Most churches can designate areas where the viewing can take place prior to the funeral home, or prior to the funeral vigil. In some churches, you may leave the casket overnight in preparation for Mass tomorrow. Often, however, the funeral home will take the body with them and bring it back the following day for the funeral Mass. If you do not plan to have the Mass, but only a funeral service in the funeral home, you also have to decide the issue on viewing. Who gets to see your body? Is it for anyone who would like to view, or is it only for the family? Then, for after the Mass or service, you need to decide if you're going to be buried in the ground in a cemetery or be interred in a mausoleum. Now, what about for cremation? As you may know, cremation is allowed in the Catholic Church. All that the Church requires, however, is that it's not done due to a lack of respect towards the body and not a denial of the church's teaching on the day when the dead will be raised body and soul. What most families don't think of are the available options and considerations prior to the actual cremation of the body. Before I discuss these options and considerations, I would like to first talk about the significance of the human body. The human body is very significant. First, that is how God created us. We are embodied beings. We are souls with a body. It is not by accident that we have bodies. God created us to have bodies. We are not angels. We are not spiritual beings. And we will never become angels. We are souls with a body, and we rather would become and could become saints. Secondly, a person is known through his or her body. Whether you like it or not, you are known by others by what they see. Human beings see with their eyes, and the human eye cannot see souls. We read the person through the body. The soul's connection to the body is so intimate that the body feels and expresses it. A stressed person usually has an ailing body. A joyful person exceeds peace and warmth. A cold person tends to make you feel that coldness even without trying it. We love the person through the body. We hug, we kiss, we hold hands, we pat one's back. We also show hatred through the body. We can inflict physical violence to the body, which truly hurts the human person. Our memories of the deceased will always be tied to the body of the person. Lastly, our bodies are temples of the Holy Spirit. Our bodies are holy. There is dignity to our bodies, and it demands utmost respect. When the body is this important, we need to make sure that if we choose cremation, it respects these things that I have just shared with you. The church still prefers the traditional burial of the body in a grave or in a tomb, patterned after the care given to the body of Jesus, our Lord, before his resurrection. He was not cremated. I wish we could edit that from the video, but no. So, resurrection. The church has always reverenced the body because it is holy, and we believe in the dead being raised to life. The presence of the body at the funeral fully symbolizes what we believe. If you choose cremation, however, you have to make sure that your decisions do not skip the meaningful parts of the liturgy that can only come with the presence of the body. The church prefers that you have the cremation done only after the funeral mass. One may object and say that it's cheaper without the body. So I went to 2 funeral homes and researched it. And the answer was obviously not necessarily true. I asked these funeral homes and the answer was the same. It depends upon your choices. It's the optional choices that make things expensive. Having the body is not necessarily going to be more expensive than cremation. So you have to research this yourself to know your options and so that you'll know it yourself. And again, the point is, we are not against cremation as long as it's not done to express disbelief in Jesus raising the dead and the inherent dignity of a human body. Cremation is basically fast-forwarding our decay through the furnace. All we are saying, however, is that there are very meaningful and dignified ways to celebrate the funeral liturgy with the body, which can help in your grief and bereavement before the actual cremation. Now, if you're truly set to have the cremation before any funeral liturgy, then please let the priest know. There is an option for any family member to gather with the priest in the presence of the body to bless it before it is cremated, which also helps in healing. And in those occasions that I've had experienced that, they didn't know that this was an option. There were some families who were so adamant, some of the family members were so adamant that the cremation take place as soon as possible. But those who did not like that option were, of course, it hindered their grief and it complicated their grief. But the good thing was that I came to know this early on, and I told them, you know that I can be there just before the cremation. And they said, Father, is that an option? Yes. And so we had the blessing of the body, and they had a beautiful expression of love towards their family member right there, just before it was cremated. And that helped their grief. You cannot, now once you have taken these into account and you have made your decision, you then need to decide how to inter the ashes. You may have it buried in the ground or in the cemetery, or interred in a columbarium. So these are your two Catholic options. You cannot scatter the ashes in their favorite spot. This is not looking forward to the raising of the dead in Jesus Christ. This is looking backwards to a past memory. This is expressing loneliness, of missing the person who lived in the past and not expressing hope in Jesus Christ to the future resurrection. And so when we have the temptation to scatter the ashes in the places where they used to go, the places that they love, it shows not a forward approach towards the hope in Jesus Christ. It wants to go back to the past as if everything is lost. To bury or entomb is to take care of the body of the person until both body and soul reunite on the day of judgment. One of the many awful mistakes people make is to scatter the ashes in one's backyard. In the future, when you have to sell your house, it will be odd to visit the backyard of your former house. And even more awful for the new owners to find out that the remains of your loved ones are in their backyard. There is nothing Christian to this practice. Do not divide the cremated remains of your loved ones and have it in a pendant, in a special lamp, in a statuary, in a teddy bear, or in small jars. Apparently you can have teddy bears now where you can put the remains in there so you can hug the person. I know, right? And if you still have the urn of your loved one at home, I beg you, please arrange the proper interment soon. Keep the dead in the proper place for the dead. Put things in their proper places and keep your lives in order. We heal by moving forward. Now one may say, how about the relics of the saints? Thinking that the church would be hypocrites, that we keep the bones of those of saints. Well, first, they are of canonized saints, and these relics have been deemed worthy of veneration by the church. The family of the deceased cannot make this decision on their own. It is only the church that has the authority to do this. Your loved one may be saintly, and that's wonderful, but bury the remains of your loved one. You should pray for their souls. You may even ask for their prayers, but you don't have to keep their remains with you. Bury or entomb. No other options if you want to handle things in a Catholic way. In summary, talk to your family about your funeral plan and write it down. A priest can be involved in these things to help the family understand the church's practices and teachings. It's not just a matter of being buried with a body or cremation. You also need to consider what happens before and after cremation, because these things are not just things that we do without meaning. They have deeper meaning, and it goes beyond merely disposing one's remains.